do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you've had a nice start to your week. Today's Wednesday. Jeez, this week is just moving. Absolutely flying. We got the NFL draft coming up 2 weeks from tomorrow. We've got, the NBA playoffs. Those are about to start. Pacers with another win last night. You got Luka making his return to Dallas tonight. All sorts of stuff going on. You got, the Nuggets cleaning house, 3 games before the playoffs. I mean, just all sorts of stuff going on in the world of basketball. NFL draft stuff is happening. Teams are hosting, potential NFL draftees. They're hosting them. And I haven't seen anything on the Colts and who they're hosting quite yet. But, mock drafts are still out all over the place. And, it seems like everyone has some sort of NFL mock draft at this point. And it's really interesting to read them all because, everyone has a different idea on who the Indianapolis Colts should take with that 14th pick. And when you read through all 37 million NFL mock drafts that are available to you to read, the most popular prediction for the Colts to draft at 14 is Tyler Warren. I'm still not convinced that this is going to happen because it seems like, the Saints, maybe the Jets, someone, drafting in front of the Indianapolis Colts are going to grab Tyler Warren because that dude seems like he's a sure thing when it comes to productive NFL player that could potentially play for 10 years. Now, mock drafts get updated throughout the offseason. Obviously, there have been some other names on the most recent versions of all these mock drafts. I saw Will Johnson on the list. He's that stud cornerback out of Michigan. He has emerged as a potential pick for the Colts at 14. Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama. His name's been floated. Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. He's getting some buzz as well. But when you read through all of these, first round mock drafts, a lot of the picks assess the needs of the Colts, right? Tyler Warren or Colston Loveland both address that need at tight end that the Indianapolis Colts have. The Colts have a need at right guard. Tyler Booker out of Alabama would address that. The only pick that doesn't really address the need is Will Johnson playing corner. Colts don't need another corner, but that guy seems like he's going to be a stud, and I'm always in favor of drafting good players. I didn't see Jahad Campbell on any more mock drafts going to the Colts with that 14th pick, but I do believe that he is still very much in play. The Colts need a linebacker, and if the Colts take him, I will be elated. With that being said, there are good linebackers available in the second or third round. Same thing with tight ends. Chris Ballard is all about value. So I wouldn't be surprised if they passed on Jahad Campbell and decided to take a different linebacker that's not as good in the second or third round. And that's really what I want to focus on with this Indianapolis Colts draft. There is a ton of speculation and emphasis, and this is for every team in the NFL, not just the Colts, but there's a ton of speculation and emphasis on the Colts' first round pick. Who are they going to take 14th overall? And of all of those, options, like who is it going to be? Because no one has any clue, okay? And my thing is, what does the draft look like after that? Who do they take in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh round? Because, yes, like that first round pick is going to be incredibly important. It is. And as that happens, but after that, like things are still important. Like who the Colts take in the second round, like is probably going to play some snaps this year. I mean, A.D. Mitchell wasn't very good last year, and he still seemed to be on the field in really important spots. So I kind of look at the rest of the Colts draft today. And I do think that, the more that I read, the more that I think the Colts do go offense with that first round pick. Probably tight end, probably Colston Loveland, Hopefully Tyler Warren slides down to that, 14th pick in the draft, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. But I do think Loveland is a legitimate option. In the second round, I think we'll see the Colts go defense because the Colts do have needs on the defensive side of the football. If they don't take Jahad Campbell with that 14th pick, they're going to need a linebacker. They could take Demetrius Knight Jr., big linebacker out of South Carolina. They need another edge rusher because you can never have too many edge rushers, and the ones that the Colts have drafted here as of late haven't exactly panned out. Landon Jackson, a big edge rusher out of Arkansas, would make a lot of sense. If they, for some reason, didn't want to see another year of Nick Cross, why did I say for some reason? If they came to their senses and were like, I don't really want to see Nick Cross play safety for us anymore, Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame would make sense. I do think that the most likely position for them to take in the second round is a linebacker or a tight end, depending on what they do with that 14th pick, right? If they go Jahad Campbell, then I think that their second round pick will be used on the tight end. But if they go Colston Loveland or Tyler Warren with that 14th pick, then I think we'll see them go linebacker because they didn't bring back EJ Speed and they need another linebacker. With that being said, I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Colts use their second round pick on a defensive tackle. DeForest Buckner is 30. Grover Stewart is 31. I guess that's kind of old for the NFL. It just is. And Taven Bryan isn't exactly cutting it as your backup defensive tackle. The Colts need depth and youth at that defensive tackle spot. And there's a lot of good ones that will specifically be available in the second round. So guys like TJ Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, makes a lot of sense. Shamar Turner, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Both of them would make an infinite amount of sense for the Colts to use that second round pick on. In the third round, defensive tackle or linebacker will still be in play depending on what they do in the second round. Look for, defensive tackle Jordan Phillips to maybe be an option out of Maryland. Maybe it's Chris Paul Jr., fast, sideline to sideline linebacker out of Ole Miss. I think both of those guys will 1,000% be on the board for the Colts in that third round. But we start to see other positions become possibilities in the third round as well. Running back and offensive line, I do think that those are two positions that the Colts will take a swing at some point. Definitely offensive line, as we have heard Chris Ballard say, he really likes the middle round offensive linemen in this draft class. And I know that they're bringing in Khalil Herbert, but I do think that they want one more running back. So the Colts need offensive line depth and youth. Once again, Chris Ballard said that he he likes these middle round draft guys. I think that's a large reason why we wouldn't see them draft, Tyler Booker out of Alabama with that 14th pick. I think we're going to see Chris Ballard go offensive line in that third, fourth, and fifth rounds. So in the third round, in terms of running backs, because once again, I think that the Colts are going to kind of look for this Tyler Goodson, scat back, can catch the ball out of the backfield kind of player. And Dylan Sampson, running back from Tennessee, should be on the board. He's like 5'8", 180 pounds, blazing fast. The kid can just flat out fly. Maybe Travion Henderson lasts until pick 80. That's where the Colts are at. He'd be a really good option as well. Plenty of good offensive linemen in this range as well. Tate Ratledge, offensive guard out of Georgia. Look, I'm all for taking dudes out of Georgia. Okay, if you're from Georgia and you drive your car too fast, chances are you're going to be an awesome NFL player. That seems to be the formula down there. There's a guard/offensive tackle out of Arizona. I'm going to really mess up his name because I can't pronounce it. His name is Jonah Savinia. He'd be a good option as well. And if Chris Ballard, for some reason, I don't think he'll do this, but then again, it's Chris Ballard. Who knows what this guy's going to do? If Chris Ballard continues to neglect tight end in that with that first and second round pick, which would be really shocking, Harold Fannin Jr., the tight end out of Bowling Green, who won, he didn't win the Mackey Award, but he received a pretty significant amount of votes for it. He was the runner-up to Tyler Warren for the award. He's projected to still be on the board in the third round. That could also be an option for the Colts if they wanted to go Harold Fannin Jr. in the third round. Okay. The fourth round is where things start to get interesting for me. Offensive line still makes a ton of sense here. Once again, Chris Ballard has, talked a pretty decent amount about the middle rounds, offensive line. It's good, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Offensive line still makes sense here, right? Jared Wilson, a center out of Georgia. Would love to see that guy come here. Emory Jones Jr., offensive tackle out of LSU. Both of those guys could be good options. In the fourth and fifth rounds, you're also looking for depth. The Colts, if they wanted to take a cornerback here, just for depth at the position, because Juju Brents can't stay healthy. Jalen Jones on in-breaking routes is really good. Everything else, I'm like, I don't know about that. So a corner like Noel Williams out of Cal, he could potentially be a good option there as well. And then the fifth round is where I think the Colts surprise some people. Not us here in Indianapolis who are on top of this. But if they went quarterback in the fifth round, I would not be surprised. This is the round where Kyle McCord out of Ohio State. Kyle McCord played at Ohio State and then Syracuse. Like he'll probably come off the board somewhere in here. Maybe they go Riley Leonard, the less athletic version of Anthony Richardson. And then in the sixth and seventh rounds, they'll just go depth. Like if you're taking someone in the sixth or seventh round, you're just hoping that they make your roster. Rob Albright with a fantastic question over on Twitter or X. You can watch the show there, __ Jonathan Smith. You can also watch the show on YouTube, Indie Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Rob Albright asking a great question. He said, I need to understand why Ballard is all about value matters. The guy hasn't ever been successful with that. So why is that just accepted and given a free pass? Go get great players, not value. I don't get it. Rob, I'm with you. Okay, like just go get good players. It's really fascinating how the Eagles just draft great players. That like the Eagles draft strategy, I feel like is just best player available. And when you do that, it's amazing how good you wind up being. Because great players are usually better athletes than non-great players, and you're able to kind of shuffle them around and do various things with that. And the thing with Chris Ballard is like he's just a bargain hunter. That is the history that we've seen from him. He'll pass on these potential blue chip guys to then take, someone else a little bit later who projects as like a solid player. And when you look at the NFL, once again, just echoing, Rob being right, I'm more just talking about the history of Ballard whenever I say he's about value, because he is. Like, that's kind of his thing. I don't get it, but people around here really seem to love it. But, solid 10-year veterans don't win Super Bowls, which sounds a little backwards. But, like, you have to have studs, like, woven in that. Like, you look at the Eagles, and look, they've got, last year they had guys like Darius Slay, who's played cornerback in the NFL for a long time. And guys like, Graham coming off the edge, and Josh Sweat, solid, guys that are gonna play in the NFL for a long time. Like, there's a lot of that. But there's also these blue chip guys that they have just kind of sprinkled all over the place. Think, Braun, the linebacker who was a stud this year and almost won Defensive Player of the Year. Think Quinyon Mitchell, the kid that they took with their first round pick. Like these solid veterans, like that's what you find in the second, third, and hopefully fourth and fifth rounds. But that first round pick, needs to be used on a blue chipper if you can. And that is why I'm in major favor of Chris Ballard taking a Tyler Warren if he's on the board, because that guy seems like he's an absolute blue chip prospect. That's why I'm in favor of him using that 14th pick on a linebacker, which, we don't see very many first-round linebackers anymore. But if they're a blue chip guy who's going to make a huge impact on your team, then I don't really care what position they play. When you look at the 49ers, it's the exact same thing. It's a lot of good, solid 10-year vets with, blue chip guys sprinkled in there. George Kittle is a blue chip guy. Christian McCaffrey, blue chip guy. Fred Warner, blue chip guy. And his running mate, Dre Greenlaw, or former running mate, Dre Greenlaw, is like this solid 10-year vet who's, going to play in the league for a long time and be productive. I think that I've been pretty vocal on this and pretty critical of Chris Ballard in this regard. There's just not enough blue chip players on this roster. It's a lot of, that guy's good, that guy's solid. There's a lot of solid, but there's very little great on this Colts roster. And that's really what's holding them back. Imagine this receiving core of good, solid receivers, because that's what the Colts have right now. Michael Pittman Jr., good, solid player. Josh Downs, good, solid player. Alec Pierce, good, solid player. If you had any great wide receiver, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, any blue chip receiver, the offense would go up to another level because you have that guy. And when you look at the Colts and why they're average, it's because that's what they have on the roster. Chris Ballard has not done a good enough job of finding or identifying and then drafting blue chip players. And I think it comes back to his willingness to go with value over blue chip guys. He would rather draft a good player in the first round and a good player in the second round than take a great player in the first round and then have to settle for a below average player in the second, not realizing that great players make up for your below average players on your roster. Okay, for some reason, that is the way that Chris Ballard operates. I don't like it, but that is the reality of what we have here in Indianapolis, and it's a large part of why the Colts haven't been successful. It's why they haven't won a division once during the Chris Ballard tenure. It's because it's not about drafting and acquiring great. It's about finding a lot of solid. And that doesn't win you games when you really need to win them. Speaking of winning games, when you need to win them, the Pacers still trying to fully clinch that 4th seed. They still technically have a chance to be the 3 seed if the Knicks collapse here down the stretch like they did last night against the Boston Celtics. I have thoughts on Wizards and Pacers and the NBA playoffs when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes. Maybe. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Tickets. Tony East is set to join the show coming up at 11 o'clock to continue to talk Pacers, the playoffs looming. Can't wait. The NBA season ends on Sunday, and that's going to be a fantastic day. Game 82 of the regular season in the NBA is always weird. Like Obi Toppin went for 50 a couple of years ago when he was still playing for the Knicks. Because once again, game 82s are just weird. The Pacers game last night was very, very weird. They host the Wizards. They win, the most important thing there, right? They win 104-98. And, oh, geez, the Pacers come out, and they just looked flat. I mean, it was not good. Like, a lot of bad defense. Alex Sarr, who's an emerging player, a guy who's gotten better over the course of the season. And I know what you're thinking, Jonathan, you've been watching the Wizards. You must have no life, which is partially true. I also have a wife who just is incredibly gracious and lets me do things like that. And so Alex Sarr comes out, 16 points in the first quarter, just working Miles Turner, giving him the business. And, it's because the Pacers came out flat. The only guy who really seemed engaged was Pascal Siakam, who started 4 or 5 from the floor with 8 points. Okay? And they come out, and it was bad. And this is just what we continue to see from this Indiana Pacers team. They play these bad teams, and they come out flat. And they dig themselves a hole like this. And then Rick Carlisle has to call timeout, and he has to chew him out and say, guys, why aren't we playing very hard? Like, this game is, important if we want to be the 4th seed and have home court advantage in that first round. And apparently it didn't work. That message didn't seem to get across because Johnny Furphy, 2nd-round pick out of Kansas, started the second quarter. When Johnny Furphy plays and it's not the 4th quarter, and the Pacers aren't up by 15 or more, that means that there is a lack of energy. When he started the second quarter, I was like, ho. Yeah, the energy, the effort needed to win NBA games isn't there. It's not. And so it's just, just brutal watching that game. And I'm just like, good thing I'm eating pizza. Because if I wasn't eating pizza while I'm watching this game, then I would just be really frustrated. And I was anyway. And eventually the Pacers wake up. Around the 7-minute mark in the second quarter, they go on this 21-11 run over the final 7 minutes to tie the game up at half. Tyrese Halliburton hits a really tough shot at the buzzer. And despite trailing by as many as 16 at one point, the Pacers battled their way back. And I'm like, all right, halftime. They're going to come out in the second half. They're just going to, accelerate past the Wizards. No big deal. I'll be able to turn this game off with like four minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. Siakam rolling. He had 16 points at half. Halliburton only had 5 points on 1 of 4 shooting. He only had 2 assists. And so it's like, they're going to get it rolling here and everything's going to be fine. And that did not happen because the Pacers just shot the ball terribly. Halfway through the third quarter, the Pacers were 1 of 18 from 3. And when you're shooting the ball that poorly, you're not going to beat anybody. You're just not. Thankfully, the Wizards were having a bad shooting night as well. They were 8 of 24 from 3. So they had made 7 more threes than the Pacers. Were shooting, a much higher percentage, even though they were only at 33%. And the Pacers are down. I'm just kind of like, geez, this has to be fixed though, right? The 3-point barrage from the Pacers has to show up at some point because this Indiana Pacers team did an excellent job of, creating open looks. And this is something that the Pacers have done incredibly well all season. Like they just kind of, create really good looks. And part of that is the offense that they run. The other part of this is, just the fact that they have Halliburton, who has, this knack for just finding players that are open. And, when you have a point guard like that, it just makes your offense significantly easier. And eventually the barrage comes. They end up going 4 for 6 from 3 on their next 6 attempts. They take the lead. They go up 75-78, or excuse me, 75-73. And, at that point, it's just like, all right, we're cool. They have the lead. It's the fourth quarter. They're not going to look back. The Wizards were, surprisingly scrappy because once again, like the Wizards are trying to lose games right now because, it's the end of the season and they want the number 1 overall pick. So the Pacers don't surrender the lead. Yes, they do. That's not true. They give the lead back with about 5.5 minutes left. And from there, Tyrese Halliburton finally gets going. Okay, he gets fouled on, or he makes a 3, comes back down, gets fouled on a 3-point attempt, hits 2 of 3 from the line, comes down two possessions later, and he hits another 3. Like he just finally got going. Miles Turner scored there a little bit as well, but the Pacers just finally looked like themselves for a prolonged stretch at, in the final 5.5 minutes of that game. They wind up pulling away. They win 104-98, and a win is a win is a win. And the Pacers need as many wins as possible right now because once again, the Bucks just won't lose. They were, down late against the Minnesota Timberwolves, who were that's a really good basketball team. Minnesota, they've been playing well here as of late. And then Giannis just turns it on. He's like, yeah, we're not going to lose this game. In fact, we're going to outscore you in the fourth quarter 40-13. And, Giannis, another triple-double. And so they're still just kind of hanging around. They're still holding on to that 5th seed. The Pacers currently have a 3-game lead over the Bucks for the 4th seed. One more win, and I believe that they clinch it. And the Pistons are currently 5 games back of the Pacers. So the Pacers are at worst going to be the 5th seed. The Pistons, though, still trying to overcome the Bucks to grab that 5 seed. There is a world where the Pacers are the 3 seed. The Knicks, they are 50-29. Their season is obviously almost over. They have 3 games left. If they lose all 3 and the Pacers win all 3 of their final 3 games, then the Pacers will be the 3 seed over the Knicks, which would be awesome. In fact, that would be great. The thing is, I don't really care whether or not the Pacers are the 3rd or 4th seed. I just want them to play the Pistons in the first round because I do think that is the easiest opponent for them. But the Pacers, they're only 1 win away from securing that 4th seed. I'll give you my thoughts on whether or not they would rather play the Pistons or Bucks in the first round of the playoffs here in about here in 10 minutes or so. But before we get to that, this losing streak was snapped yesterday. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, I absolutely have to talk about this game. There's just no way around it. I have to bring this up. There's a Division III baseball team whose university name I really struggle to pronounce. They snapped a 100-game losing streak yesterday. Do you know how hard it is to lose 100 straight baseball games? That is near impossible. You have to try to lose if you want to lose 100 baseball games in a row. 100. 3 digits. That's over 2 seasons worth of college baseball. 100 games in a row. What? Could you imagine? Because, like in baseball, like, the way that it works is like you'll have a game where like your pitcher's really feeling it, and he'll throw 100 pitches and like 70 of them will be strikes and he's just painting the corners and like that happens. Or you have, a batter who goes 4 for 4 and they hit 2 homers and, they lead the game with like 8 RBI and it's great. Nope. None of that happened in 100 games. Or you'll have a game where the other team's just off. The opposing pitcher, walks or pitchers walk like 7 batters and their second baseman misses 2 routine ground balls and like you score 4 extra runs because of that. And then like and then you win because the other team just made a bunch of mistakes. That didn't happen either, or at least not enough mistakes for them to win one game in their previous 100. You want to know what's even crazier? The team that they beat was on a 42-game losing streak, which is still crazy. It's not 100. But yeah, a Division III baseball team snapped a 100-game losing streak. That is it's unfathomable how bad you have to be to lose that many games in a row. It's incredible. There's no other word for it. Absolutely incredible. Speaking of incredible, Giannis Antetokounmpo is rolling. Like that dude couldn't be playing better basketball than he is right now. He's making every shot. He's making every play that needs to be made. Giannis is making right now, which makes sense because Damian Lillard's not there anymore, or he's hurt. He's got blood clots in his shoulder. And, like you can't play. I don't think you can really even travel when you have that kind of stuff going on. So hopefully Lillard heals up and he's able to play basketball again after they play the Pacers in the first round, because that's kind of how things are shaping up to be. But my thoughts on whether or not the Pacers would rather play the Pistons or the Bucks in that first round series when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
The best takes, stories, and entertainment. It's The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket. 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
What's going on? Welcome back to The Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Thanks for tuning in, no matter how you're tuning in, whether that's YouTube, Indy's Sports Ticket, if you want to head over there and subscribe. Maybe watching on Twitter, __ Jonathan Smith. If you want to follow me there, you can also follow the station at Ticket 1430 for all the updates on both my show and the Dan Dockett Show from noon to 3. You can listen to my show and Dan Dockett Show via the Indy Sports Ticket app as well. And yeah, the app is great. It's fantastic. Also, something else that's pretty fantastic is Indulge Indy. Okay, you should come out to Indulge Indy. It's a summer beverage preview party at the Ritz-Charles in Carmel on Saturday, May 10th. There's going to be food for you to sample, nice beverages for you to sample that will inspire menus for your backyard barbecues, pool parties, graduation parties, and more. Indulge Indy, sponsored by Payless Liquors. You can get your tickets today over at IndySportsTicket.com. Once again, that event is on May 10th. Make sure you go and you check it out because it's going to be lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay, it's going to be awesome. So make sure you go and check out Indulge Indy. Also, make sure you keep your finger on the pulse of everything that is currently related to the Indiana Pacers because we're at the end of the season. The NBA season ends on Sunday. It's going to be amazing. Game 82. It's always crazy. And the playoffs, though, right? Like, that's what we're all ready for. I think that's just, 82 games. It's a long season. And we just kind of wait for these amazing 7-game series that never seem to underdeliver, especially for the Pacers last year. Their run to the Eastern Conference Finals was just an absolute blast in every way, shape, and form. They beat the Bucks in the first round. And then they play the Knicks in round 2. Game 7, they go on the road to New York, play the Knicks, get a big win in Madison Square Garden. It was awesome. It was an absolute blast to watch the Pacers go on that run last year during the playoffs, despite all of the injuries to the Pacers' opponents. And hopefully we get a pretty similar thing going on this year as well. And the Pacers are either going to play the Pistons or the Bucks. It's looking more and more like the Bucks as Giannis just continues to be so freaking dominant in every game that he plays. But the Bucks don't have Damian Lillard. Honestly, both of these teams are dealing with some injury issues, right? Damian Lillard has the blood clots. Jay Nivey, he broke his fibula earlier in the season. With that being said, it doesn't seem like either one of these two players are going to play in a first-round playoff series, but there is a world where both of them come back at some point. Damian Lillard, he's posted videos of himself working out. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It seems like guys work out for 2 months in the NBA before they're cleared to come back. For Jay Nivey, he broke his fibula 4 months ago. A broken fibula takes 4 to 6 months to heal. So maybe he plays, maybe he doesn't. Either way, like these two injuries for both of these teams are a big deal because Damian Lillard's pretty clearly the second best player for the Milwaukee Bucks, and Jay Nivey is the second best player on the Detroit Pistons. Like when Damian Lillard isn't playing for the Bucks are missing 25 points and 7 assists and a 38% three-point shooter in Damian Lillard. He's also the pressure release valve for Giannis. Because right now, like if you're watching the Bucks play games, Giannis is doing everything. He's bringing the ball up the floor. He's creating for his teammates. He's, going to the bucket as he does. Like he's just being asked to do everything for the 40 minutes that he's on the floor every single night. And that works sometimes, but at the same time, like that wears on you a little bit, especially over the course of a 7-game series when your opponent knows exactly what you're going to do every time down the floor. Oh, you mean you're going to set another ball screen for Giannis to his right so he can get downhill. Oh, no ball screen this time. He's just going to run over me like he's a running back. Gotcha. Sounds good. But having Damian Lillard allows them to, diversify their offense a little bit. I know people were really excited about Kyle Kuzma going there for some reason, but he's not doing anything like that for you. So, they're obviously missing a great player in Damian Lillard. And if he comes back at any point, during, a series against the Pacers or Knicks, then the game changes very, very quickly. The Pistons, they're missing their second leading scorer, 18 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds per game with Jaden Ivey. He is their second leading scorer. He is their second best player. And he's very important to the Pistons and what they want to do because he's a player who can get his own shot when he needs to. He can get to the rim. He can create space and knock down a jumper. He had made a real leap, like a legitimate leap, not an Anthony Richardson sized leap from year 2 or from year 1 to year 2, like a real leap. Like Jaden Ivey was clearly figuring things out, and that's part of why the Pistons got off to the great start that they did. But then he gets hurt, and the Pistons season changes a little bit. They make these trades, and Cade Cunningham is the Pistons' best player. He's why the Pistons are as good as they are this year. He's why they've been able to survive and be a top 6 seed without their second best player. Because Cade Cunningham is a good player. He has a legitimate All NBA case this year. Former number 1 overall pick. The truth is though, Cade Cunningham by himself really isn't all that terrifying. A guy who's never really played in the playoffs before. Good player, talented player. Probably the best player in this series, if I had to say anything super specific about it. And with that being said, after Cade Cunningham, he's not carrying the load for 40 minutes. It's not happening. The Pistons are going to have stretches where they ask Tobias Harris to make plays. And, if Tobias Harris is your second best player, then I'm sorry, but I'm not super scared of you, even though he's been hurt for the last week or so, but he should be back for the playoffs. The Pistons are going to depend on Dennis Schroeder for stretches, to go and make plays. And I'm sorry, but that's just not terrifying at all. I think in order for the Pistons to beat anyone, whether it's the Pacers or the Knicks in a first round series, they need a second creator. And Jaden Ivey was going to be that for them this year. Because he was, like I said, he legitimately improved. And I know that, there's a lot of attention on the Bucks, and there's this very popular, take that the Pacers would rather play the Bucks because the Bucks don't have their second best player. Well, neither do the Pistons. And Cade Cunningham, as good as he's been this year, is nowhere near as good as Giannis, who's going to be first team All NBA once again, and is probably and should, I don't know if he will, but he should finish third in MVP voting. That's how good Giannis has been this year. And the difference, and why I would rather the Pacers play the Pistons rather than the Bucks, is Giannis can have 4 incredible games where he goes for 40, 12, and 8. And he can do that 4 times, and then the Pacers are just kissed goodbye. See ya. He can have 4 incredible games without Damian Lillard and beat the Pacers for a couple of reasons. First, the Pacers don't have anyone to guard him, which, to be fair, no one really does. Meanwhile, the Pacers have multiple defenders that they can put on Cade Cunningham. That would actually do a pretty good job. Andrew Nembhard would give him some struggles. Aaron Nesmith, you could put him on him. If you wanted to put Jarris Walker on Cade Cunningham for a short 4-minute stretch, Jarris Walker, I think he has improved enough, and I think that the Pacers staff would trust him enough to try that, especially early in the series when you're just kind of trying to feel everyone out. If the Pacers play the Bucks, come on now. Aaron Nesmith plays so hard. He's a good perimeter defender. But he's not thick enough to defend Giannis. Neither is Nembhard. Jarris Walker, body type wise, would make sense, but love Jarris. He's gotten so much better this year, playing real minutes for the Pacers. No, you're not putting him on Giannis. No, you're not giving him that much responsibility. Like there's just no one that even makes sense for the Pacers to put on Giannis. So I think matchup wise, defending the Pistons' best player in Cade Cunningham, who's going to be asked to do a lot throughout that playoff series because there's no Jaden Ivey, the Pacers just match up better defending that guy than they do Giannis. And the one caveat between, playing the Pistons versus playing the Bucks is the supporting cast of the Bucks is significantly worse than the Pistons. It just is. Like Kyle Kuzma is currently the Bucks' second best player. It's not great. It's not great. They don't have, another guy that they can just give the ball to outside of Giannis and say, hey, go get a bucket. They don't have anyone else like that. The Pistons kind of do. Like Tobias Harris here and there, he can go get you one. Dennis Schroeder here and there, he can go get you one. It's when you're relying on those guys for 4 straight minutes that things can get dicey. But from time to time, they can go get one if they need to. The Pistons are also a better defensive team than the Bucks. The Bucks are a bad defensive team. They just are. Giannis is an excellent defender. Brook Lopez can still protect the rim, but you look at the perimeter guys like Gabe Vincent, you really worried about that guy guarding you? AJ Green, are you overly concerned about him? I'm not at all. But then the Pistons, they're rough, they are tough, they are physical. They just feel like Detroit in a very simple sense. But with that being said, role players don't win playoff series. They never have. They never will. Stars do. That's the very simple reality of it. And the Pacers would prefer to play the Pistons simply to avoid Giannis, who's the best player in the Eastern Conference this year. Jason Tatum is having a career year. He's not having a better year than Giannis. It's not happening. So hopefully the Pistons find a way to be that 5th seed because the Pacers would much prefer play them than the Bucks. John Buzzard chiming in on Twitter. If you want to follow me there at __ Jonathan Smith, Buzzard chiming in saying, is it dumb to say the Pistons may be better without Ivy and the Bucks better without Lillard? Seems like both teams win at a higher clip without them. I think game to game, regular season, actually, I would say no, just because I think that you want as much talent as possible. Because as great as Giannis is, he's going to have a bad game at some point. And when that game comes, it'd be really nice to have Damian Lillard be able to, take the ball for 4.5 minutes and be like, Giannis, you go sit down, recollect yourself. Let me run the offense. I don't know what the numbers are, but I bet the on-off splits with Giannis as opposed to when he's on the floor versus off are pretty pitiful. Jokic level stuff where teams just seem to go on crazy runs whenever he hits the bench. And so I think that to sustain leads and even extend leads with Giannis on the bench, you obviously want Dame. That would be my argument really for both teams. The interesting thing about the Pistons is they've won a lot without Ivy. I think part of that just speaks to the defense that they play, but I would go back to that same thing where it's nice when Cade Cunningham's on the bench to have a guy like Jaden Ivey who can just go and get you one for 4 straight minutes while Cade is doing his rest thing. So while both teams are still good, because anytime Giannis has the ball more, you're going to be better in the minutes that he's on the floor. But it's when he's off. That's where you kind of see the Bucks struggle. When Cade Cunningham goes off the floor, you can see the Pistons struggle. They're better than the Bucks are with Giannis off the floor. Because Schroeder and Tobias, like I said, are capable of occasionally kind of running your offense, but I do think both teams would be better with Damian Lillard and Jaden Ivey just because they would simply have more talent. Another guy who, when your main stars are off the floor, they can sustain you. We're going to keep talking about this. Tony East of Locked On Pacers, he's set to join the show coming up here in about 4.5 minutes. We'll talk Pacers. We're also going to talk a little bit of Nuggets as well. And these Western Conference teams firing their head coaches right before the playoffs start. All that is coming your way with Tony East when we come back here in about 4.5 minutes.
do this. It's the Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a great week. I am. I forgot it was Wednesday. This week is just flying by. Joined now by Tony East, who had the privilege of watching the Pacers try to play basketball last night. Tony, what's going on, man? How are you?
I did watch it, unfortunately. I don't remember which three-pointer it was. I think it was their 19th three when they were 1 for 19, when I thought maybe they're actually going to lose this game. It was something.
They found a way, though, which is, I mean, yeah, it's better than not finding a way, I guess.
So they did find a way, and I let me be clear. They played well in the fourth quarter. Like, they made 5 threes. They shot it well. Their offensive process was good. Like, I don't want to blast them for the way they played. They deserved to win the game. The Wizards also put out an intentionally, let's say, not very good lineup in the fourth quarter with JT Thor closing at center, and I think that helps the Pacers quite a bit.
But he blocked a couple shots. I was like, oh, JT Thor making plays.
Yeah, but he was minus 30. Alex Sarr was plus 16. The Wizards closed with the player that let's say helps their draft case more.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought was going to happen. I was like, if the game's close late, like the Wizards are going to do what every tanking team does right now, and that's put out a really bad lineup. Really quickly, Alex Sarr, dude's going to be good.
Yes, he is. I've been a longtime fan of his, mostly because I was a Wizards fan as a kid, and I watched too much of the Wizards. But he's finally put together this post game that doesn't make him just this jumpery defensive kid. And I think you saw it at its best last night. Like, he made every single mid-range post fade he took, and he's not going to do that forever. But that's what, like, the best version of him could be. And he's in his first year. He looked really good.
I'm curious. Why were you a Wizards fan?
My first love as a player was Anton Jamison, which was very random. I'm aware.
That's random.
So I used them all the time in NBA Live 2004, like him and Larry Hughes and all those guys. And then I loved John Wall, and lo and behold, they won the draft lottery that year when he was coming out of Kentucky. So it just stuck. I already liked them, and then I loved them.
Okay, that makes sense. Joined by,
but no longer.
Yeah, be very clear on that. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, former Wizards fan apparently, which is kind of crazy. I did not expect that. So here's I thought that the first quarter the Pacers came out kind of flat as well, and those suspicions were confirmed when Johnny Furphy started the second quarter. Have you figured out why? I'm assuming you guys have asked, Carlisle and Halliburton and those guys in the post-game pressers why they just get off to such bad starts against these bad teams.
Yeah, this one was particularly weird because a lot of times it happens. Like, for example, I'll bring up the Philly game they played in Philly last month, where they start bad, they're down 10, 15, whatever, and then they figure it out and they just roll the rest away. Like last night, they were a little flat early. They chipped back at it, and then to start the third quarter, they were bad again. And then they were down 14 or 15 in the third quarter, and I thought, man, they might actually lose this game. In some ways, it's just a focus thing, right? Justin Champagnie back cuts to the basket when he's close to the ball side and he's just open, or some stuff like that. They run into a zone and they just dissolve. That's kind of a lack of focus, but honestly, like, I'm not saying they played sharp or anything yesterday. They just missed so many shots.
Yeah.
I think at some point, and it gets in your head of just like, what do we do? They didn't make it 3 till their 10th three. Their second made 3 was their 19th, I think, attempted 3. I think at one point they were like 4 for 14 inside the paint or something like that. Like they were getting okay shots, not like as good as they can. They're getting okay shots. They just couldn't make anything, to the point of, if you're on the floor, it's got to be frustrating. Like, man, what are we doing wrong? Like, this is what we want to do. We're playing the worst team in our conference, and we're down 10 points. Like, what do we do? And I always feel like in those moments, for better or worse, they get into some mismatch hunting or dump it into this guy when a small's on him. And to Pascal Siakam's credit, he destroyed smaller guys last night. And in those kind of situations where they're mismatch hunting a little more than normal, Benedict Mathurin looks great. And guess what? He was awesome in the second quarter, but it's just not how they want to play, right? It's not the flowing style they usually want to execute. So I'm not saying it's bad that Mathurin and Siakam are playing well. It's just they kind of get in their own way, right? And it takes them, like, whether it's a reminder or just like 3 to 5 good possessions of their normal style, they'll be like, oh yeah, this is better. Let's do this. And then they look better the rest of the game. It just took them 38 minutes to get it, or not that long. It took them like 32 minutes to get into that last night.
It did. And praise the Lord for Siakam, because he was good really all game. As you said, Mathurin there in that second quarter, joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about the Pacers much needed win last night to hopefully clinch the fourth seed here soon. Like, I've been thinking about this, and I want kind of your thoughts on it. Everyone is talking about Tyrese Halliburton for all NBA because, after the All-Star break, he's been awesome. Siakam's been good all year. Shouldn't the argument be Siakam should be the all NBA guy from this Pacers team?
Yeah, I think he's had the better season. The thing for Halliburton that helps him a lot is, like, everything about the Pacers is, in theory, traced back to him, right? The way they play, their statistical profile, the fact that they're able to beat really good teams, all that is traced back to him. And, like, a lot of the on-off numbers, even for Siakam, suggest, like, playing with Halliburton is extremely valuable, and playing with Siakam's like, this kind of helps you, and I get why. Like, everybody can acknowledge that Tyrese Halliburton makes his teammates better, and Pascal Siakam is very good, but doesn't do that to the same extent. But I agree with you that I think Siakam's had a better season, and certainly a more consistent season. Like, he had certainly let's say, lesser stretch in March, right? He just wrapped up probably his worst 2 weeks of the season. He had a game off, and now he looks good. Like, I think he just needed some rest. But yeah, from a consistency perspective, it's been Siakam. He doesn't, like, lift all boats in the way Halliburton does. And so a lot of the advanced stats are like, hey, this guy's a lot better, which is fine. I understand that. But I'm with you. I think Siakam's been the better player for most of the season, and has been, even when the Pacers were bad, he was playing good. And, like, very few guys on the roster can actually say that. Like, for the first 20 games of the season, the only consistent performers were Siakam and McConnell, right? And so he does deserve a lot of credit for that. But I think the way that the voting goes, like, if you don't watch every single game for a team, you just kind of default to who's making everybody else better, whose on-off numbers are really good. Oh my gosh, these advanced numbers say Halliburton's been a top 10 impact guy. And, like, in some ways he has, and I get that, but I think a lot of the actual voting population is not going to see it the way the people who watch every game will.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it as well. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about the Pacers beating the Wizards last night. So it seems like the Pacers are going to play the Bucks. That's just kind of where it's trending. The Pistons, 2 games back now of the Bucks for that 5th seed. Unless the Pacers somehow miraculously catch the Knicks, how likely do you think that is to happen?
Yeah, I think for the Pacers to not be the 4 seed, they either have to win out or lose out, right? Either extreme is the only way they're not the 4. So it's exceedingly likely they're 4, and they need, in either direction, the Bucks to win out or Knicks to lose out, right? I don't think it's pretty likely that they move at all. I mean, the Knicks play the Nets in their final game. The Knicks are still trying. They played pretty well last night against Boston, just couldn't get it done. Very Knicksy of them to get so close. So I think the inertia is there for Pacers Bucks again, and I hope that's what it is. It was so fun last year. The Bucks, though, their schedule to close is very easy. There's a chance they're playing a Pistons team over the weekend twice. It's playing for nothing. That could already be locked in as the Pistons are the 6th seed. So a lot, unfortunately, for the Pacers did not go their way results-wise last night after the Bucks miracle against Minnesota. I have no idea how that happened. We only caught the
40-13 in the fourth quarter.
I know. We were in the press room and we look, it's 95-71 Minnesota's winning. And we all knew, like, oh, if Minnesota wins, then the Pacers have home court. So we're asking some people, like, hey, there's a chance you guys clinch home court tonight. Like, what would that mean? Blah, blah, blah. And then we were like, okay, great. We, like, jot the quotes down. We go to the press room. It's on the TV in there. And we're like, it's a 2-point game. What happened? And then the Bucks, I'm like, what on earth was this? I didn't see any of the actual major run. What an implosion. That is and that's the Wolves season in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Regardless of the Timberwolves, it looks very likely the Pacers will get home court. They just need one win, and they play the Cavs twice. The Cavs have basically nothing to play for now. They've locked up the one seed in the East, and I think it's only one more game for the Thunder. It might be two, but the Thunder still play the Pelicans and the Jazz for the Thunder to clinch home court in the finals. So the Cavs have basically nothing to play for. If they're just resting guys, which they probably should, Donovan Mitchell rolled his ankle 2 games ago. Those games could actually be fairly easy for the Pacers, and that would be, I think, the ideal situation is they win Thursday, they lock up home court, and then they can say, okay, you know what? We don't really want the 3 seed. We don't want to be in Boston's side of the bracket. Let's take it easy these last 2 games, because putting yourself in a situation where you got to win the last one's kind of, goes the opposite direction, where you got to put guys out there, risk injury, all that kind of stuff. So, yes, it's true that their seeding range is still 3 through 5, but I think the best case scenario for the Pacers is clinch Thursday. Don't worry about anything else the rest of the way.
Yeah, that would be ideal, but they're the Pacers, and that's not going to happen because that's just the way that they've behaved all year long. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, and man, the idea of playing the Bucks just terrifies me. I know you didn't see the 40-13 run in the fourth quarter, but it's just it's exactly what you would probably expect. Giannis just does absolutely everything better than everyone else on the floor. And I'm just like, do I really want to have to deal with that guy for 7 games? And my answer is no. How terrifying is the idea of having to play Giannis in a 7-game series?
Yeah, I think he's averaging like a triple-double the last couple weeks. He looks amazing again. And yeah, it'd be tough, right? Like if you are thinking about the Pacers' theory of playing in theory, they could still play the Knicks, although it would take like the weirdest results ever. But playing whoever they play in the first round between the Knicks, Pistons, and Bucks, Giannis is like clearly the best player that they could go up against, right? And so you got to have some fear of that, certainly. I think Dame's health status certainly puts a question mark on what that series could look like. And the thing about the Bucks that's fascinating is like they built this team with, okay, here's the starting 5 that fits around Giannis. And like I get that Dame's hurt, but Brook Lopez means he doesn't have to guard centers, and Kuzma's like this cutting shot guy with size he's supposed to make shots, and whoever they have at the guard spots is supposed to be all this stuff they've done is like built around Giannis stylistically in their starting 5, right? And then last night they're beating Minnesota, and their closing 5 is Giannis and their bench, right? And the reason that should scare other teams is like it doesn't matter who's on the floor with him. Like if he's out there, the Bucks are good. And the Pacers have struggled with him for years, and that has to put some fear in you. And the Bucks have this zone defense that they used last night, that they used in the December game against the Pacers, that really gooks things up. And the Pacers sometimes suck against zone defenses, right? So there's just a lot of matchups. There's a lot of things about the Bucks matchup that would be somewhat challenging, I think, for the Pacers in ways that it wasn't last year. It'd be a different kind of series, and obviously Dame being out would take some of the shine off of it all. But yeah, Giannis is that good. Like he's probably been the 3rd best player in the NBA this year. I don't even think that's I think that's a certainty for most people, and it'd be tough to beat that guy 4 times. That's why home court advantage would be so important. And the Bucks are playing good right now. I think they've won 5 in a row or something like that. So not a fun time to want to play the Bucks.
No, it is not. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about the NBA. What was your reaction yesterday when Michael Malone and Calvin Booth both got fired 3 games before the playoffs for the Nuggets?
Yeah, I never know what to make of that. I mean, clearly we never know. Like even if somebody here in Indy got fired, like I wouldn't know everything. Nobody does. But like it always makes me go like, what is happening? Like what is going on there that is happening now? I thought the same thing when Taylor Jenkins got fired a few weeks ago. I think, was that in April? It might have been late March, where it's like, did something happen? Did he hurt someone? Like, why is this the case? And Denver took it a step up because like it's been reported a million times. Like everybody who covers the NBA in any capacity has heard before. Like there was this like tiff between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. Okay, that's fine. Coaches often want to play veterans. GMs often want the young guys on the floor. I get how that happens. But when I saw that he got fired, I thought, oh, okay, they're siding with Calvin Booth and think that what he's doing is sustainable. Oh, they fired the GM like 5 minutes later. So then I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, what has to happen for you to fire your coach and GM. And I don't think Calvin Booth's been that good of a GM, but still, like this close to the end of a season, it's insane to me. It's just insane because the reason you would do it now is that you think the changes you're going to make with your head coach are going to make you better this season, the rest of the current season. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Otherwise, even if you really want to do it around, just wait till the summer, maximize your chances of making this a good year. And I don't think anybody thinks that an in-season coach with 3 games to go will make a team better. I bet a lot of the Nuggets would, with truth serum, admit that that's not the case. But the owner made the choice and went on the record about it, so clearly he believes it to be somewhat true and wants his players to, a great quote, play hard and have fun. Oh, that'll solve everything. Thanks, guys. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I just think that I can't even put my finger on it. It just feels like the way that expectations are going in the NBA, because with the play-in tournament and there's so much talent in the league now, all these teams are deeper. Like, a lot of teams enter the year with expectations, right? This season started and everybody knew the Wizards were tanking and the Jazz were tanking and the Nets are probably tanking. And that was it. Like, every other team was like, yeah, maybe we could try to win or do some damage here. And of course, as the season progresses, everybody falls off and gets to where they're supposed to be. But like, when there's so many teams with expectations, like, it's harder to meet them. And this is the first time ever under Malone that the Nuggets went under their over-under, right? And then he gets fired. It's like, you can't be that impatient as a franchise when you've won a title and you clearly have something good cooking. It strikes me as so in the moment. And so either it's too in the moment, expectations are too high around the league because everybody's trying to win, or something rotten happened and like there was truly a huge divide between the two that seeped into the rest of the organization. And usually in those cases, someone gets picked, like one side gets picked. Maybe in this case, it was neither for some reason that we don't know. I just was stunned. I can't believe it. I thought the Nuggets had a chance to make the conference finals all season. Now I don't. It's terrible. It's so weird.
It is weird. Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about the Nuggets just randomly firing their head coach and GM 3 games before the end of the year. The Calvin Booth thing makes sense because the roster around Jokic just isn't very good. The only reason why they're good is because they have Jokic. So, like, that part of it makes sense.
Also, like, every good thing about the roster, Tim Connolly did. Their old president, right? Like, it wasn't Calvin Booth.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And so, like, the roster being bad makes sense. You fire him. You do it 3 games before the end of the year. That's a little weird, but that makes sense. The Malone thing is the thing that I don't really get. And my theory, because I don't know anyone in Denver who knows or anything like that, Michael Malone's really intense. Like, that dude is just like he's a very intense guy. Whenever he talks at press conferences, he just kind of seems like he wears on people. And with the NBA season being so long, and I think that the overall culture of the NBA is very relaxed because the season's so long, and Michael Malone seems like he's anything but relaxed. I wonder if he was just a little, I don't have a good word for it, but I wonder if, like, the players and the people in the building just got tired of dealing with him, because he's been there since 2015, right?
Well, yeah, 14 or 15, I can't remember if there was a year between his year with the Kings and being with the Nuggets. But yeah, it's all like 10 years-ish. And that is certainly possible. I don't know if you watched the press conferences after their Pacers game, but Michael Malone was like, yeah, I'm very much paraphrasing and making this sound like he said it way softer than he did, but he was like, yeah, I don't think our guys really watch film and like take it to heart, right? And like all this, I was like, dang, wow. And then Russell Westbrook did media in the locker room, and I get that he's had this like 3-game run where he's not done media and played quite badly, so there could have been other stuff going on here. But Russell Westbrook's media was really weird, where he just kept saying, like, I don't know why we're playing bad. I don't know what we need to do to fix it. I don't know if we have the mentality. And like, now that this happened, where he got fired, it all just hits so weird, where it strikes as like, does Malone have their ear? Did he completely lose them? And then, if you go back and listen to people who cover the Nuggets, they've been saying, like, players have been saying for weeks, like, yeah, the coaches are telling us what to do. We're just, like, not doing it. And I always wonder in those situations, right? If you were Michael Malone and you were telling a player to do something and they're just not doing it, is that Michael Malone's fault or is that the player's fault, right? And I think how you come down on that's how you like a really big assessment of what you think of coaching. But regardless, there's been like breadcrumbs all year that something goofy's going on, and maybe it is because of Malone being, whatever, intense or expecting a lot of people or whatever word you want to use. Like, clearly it works. Some of it's Jokic, but like he was there before Jokic became awesome. Like he's got to get some credit for the way he made Nikola develop. Like it's just really wild to me that they would choose this path. And even if Malone is not the personality, let's say, fit that you want running your team, like, again, run out the robe this year. That's what makes it so confusing. There's 3 games left. Play those 3 games and then, like, find a way. If you win a championship, then you don't fire him because he's clearly a good coach. And if you lose, great, you lost a round and you can fire him because you lost. Like, it just makes no sense to do it right now. It would have made tons of sense to a lot of people in the summer. That's why it's so dumb to me.
Totally agree. Last thing here that I want to talk to you about. Luka Doncic makes his return to Dallas tonight. How many points is this guy going to score?
Oh, I know. Well, there's like 2 ways this. Yeah, you would know this better, right? There's 2 ways this is going to go. Either Luka's going to show up and just like kind of jog through the game and have like 15, 10, and 10, or he's going to have like 65 points. So both are so possible, especially after he got ejected on like the stupidest pretenses ever last night. KC, yeah. God, refs need to get over themselves, man. I just was looking at right before this the photos of the shirts that they have in the arena. I don't know if you've seen them. Yeah, they look pretty good. So I like that the Mavs are leaning into the thank you part, but man, I mean, it's so crazy that this is happening. I can't believe I'm like on my tippy toes excited for Lakers Mavs, a play-in team on April 8th or whatever it is, but it's going to be awesome. And I tend to lean towards Luka not going crazy. I just can't see him being like, I want to bust these guys up, even though he might feel that way. So I feel like he'll have like a low-key triple-double, but I do think the Lakers will win by a lot. I think the Mavs are going to be trying to like really prove themselves without him, and I think that will go poorly for them.
I think for Luka, he's gonna look. He holds grudges. Like there's a reason why he always tears up the Suns because they didn't take him number 1 overall.
That is true.
Even though they had hired his former coach when he was playing overseas, and they didn't take him. The Kings, it's the same thing, and I think tonight, if he has a low-key triple-double, it'll be because he tried too hard, if that makes sense. Like he takes some like too many shots that he probably shouldn't, and he ends up, I think he's going to go for it. Like I think he's looking to score 60+ tonight because that's just the kind of guy that he is. I'm intrigued to see how Anthony Davis plays as well because he's back in the lineup. What do you kind of think he's going to do tonight?
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I think he has less to prove. Like, if I'm Anthony Davis, like I get there's no way he feels this way. In some ways, aren't you so flattered that you got traded for Luka? Like, what? Really? So I think he's happy with the Mavs. He's not playing center anymore. He actually is playing pretty well. It sucks for him that the way this is unfolded because he's playing well for a team that's decent and like no one cares because the story's the trade. Yeah, I think I don't know if he'll have any elements of like, I want to shove it to those guys. I want to be awesome because again, it'd be flattering to be traded for Luka, but I do think there's an element for like the whole Mavs of like, man, we really want to win. Can Nico Harrison give like the best speech of his life before this game? Like he really, 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 really wants the Mavs to win this game, right? He could smile a little bit for a day. I think AD will play pretty well, right? Like his defense will be really important in this game, ironically. But can he go crazy enough scoring in this one? I kind of doubt it. Lakers have a lot of size, even without him.
Joined by Tony East of Locked On Pacers, talking about Luka's return to Dallas tonight. I think we're going to see Anthony Davis play incredibly hard because, look,
yeah, I agree.
Like you said, like I think he's happy in Dallas. I also think that there's a part of him that is maybe offended's not the word, but I do think that there's a part of him that like kind of wants to show Mavs fans like, I know we lost Luka, but like I'm pretty freaking good as well. And I do think he's looking forward to the opportunity to like try to showcase that in a game that like every Dallas Mavericks fan is undoubtedly going to watch tonight.
I think that is true. Yes. What about the other elements of this? Like, is Maxi Kleba going to get a big standing ovation in this one? Are people what are the signs going to be like against Nico Harrison? Are they going to be allowed in the building?
Oh, absolutely not. We're going to get some sort of like FU Nico or fire Nico, like that'll probably happen. It will not be pro Nico Harrison, especially if Luka goes for 50.
Goes crazy. Oh my gosh. I know they did the funeral thing was that the first home game they played after the trade, maybe the second one. And I think that was like very revealing and telling. Don't get me wrong, it's cool that Mavs fans express their emotions. I almost wish they waited to do it till this game, right? Like, because today specifically is just going to be already so crazy emotional. Like, I think that would have been a very perfect like way to open the game, right? Is have that going on outside with the Dirk statue nearby and everything. And I think I saw today that however many years this would go, 6 years ago to the day was Dirk's last game at home. Like it's like perfect. It's like perfect. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be nuts.
It is. I am both looking forward to it and also not looking forward to it, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I understand where you specifically may not be excited about this game.
He's gonna get 50. Like that's just I feel very confident about. I think he's gonna go crazy, and I'm just gonna have to sit there, and my wife's gonna be like, "Jonathan, it's okay." I'm like, "But it's not though. But it's not." Oh man. Tony, thanks for your time, man. As always. Yeah, it's always great having you on. Playoffs, man. We're what week and a half away from them, right?
That's right. Play-in is in 6 days. Real games, baby. We're here.
Real games. We love it. Tony, thanks for your time, man. As always, you were great.
You got it. Thank you.
That is Tony East. You can check him out on Twitter at Tony R. East. Does a really good job covering the Pacers podcast. Very, very good as well. Dude can also write. He covers the Fever on top of everything else. It's great. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, we got some Indiana stuff to discuss in terms of the offseason, things that people overreact to. And I'm very excited to talk about it because I think Indiana is finally in its proper place. And I'm going to tell you what place that is when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
Unadulterated sports talk with unfiltered takes. It's the real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket, 1430 AM and 99.5 HD2.
Welcome back to the real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hope you're having a nice day. If you want to make your day better, get over to Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. It is the best place in Indianapolis to get real, legitimate barbecue. I'm a Southern boy at heart. That's where I grew up. Barbecue, man, just love a good barbecue. Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue honestly reminds me of home a little bit because that food is so freaking good. And right now, we've got a sweet deal for you over at Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue. Get $50 in gift certificates for only $25 at IndiesSportsTicket.com. That's IndiesSportsTicket.com. Then click on that sweet deals at the top. And, it's so good. Garrett's Smokehouse Barbecue is bringing real barbecue back to the great city of Indianapolis. Man, that place, so good. So good. Almost as good as the Purdue Boilermakers are projected to be this next season. So those way too early top 25s that come out every year and people overreact to, one came out and Purdue's ranked second, Indiana not in it at all, which is great for Indiana. More on that here in a second. But Purdue, they should be ranked second because they have several players coming back that are going to be seniors that have national championship game experience. They got to the Sweet 16 this year without a center and really no bench. Braden Smith, a first-team All-American. He's going to be back. Trey Kaufman-Wren, a guy who should have been an All-American. He will be back. Daniel Jacobson, hopefully he can stay healthy for a sophomore season. He's going to be back. They're going to land, or they already have landed a couple decent players in the transfer portal. They need a couple more. They still need to replace Camden Heide. They still need to replace Miles Colvin, but I have all the confidence in the world in Matt Painter to find replacements for those players. He may have already done it. They have this guy. His name's Antoine West. He's an incoming freshman, the number 153rd ranked recruit in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. 6'3" guard, seems like he can really play. I have faith and confidence in his ability to play organized basketball because they have Matt Painter as their head coach. And if Matt Painter is recruiting you, then you can probably play 5-on-5 really well. Okay. And if he's a good player, he'll be able to slide into that, Miles Colvin role, coming off the bench, hopefully providing a little scoring boost and defending a little bit. And if I'm being honest about Purdue and their not rebuild, but they're retooling this offseason, like they're going to find players. More specifically, they're going to find guards because guards grow on trees. There are a million good guards within the world of college basketball. The thing that I'm intrigued to see whether or not they can attract is a big wing to replace Camden Heide. Specifically, a big wing who can really score, because that's really what they need. They need another guy not named Braden Smith who can put the ball on the deck and go get a bucket in some way, shape, or form. They didn't have that this last year. Maybe one of these younger freshmen, maybe they develop into that role as sophomores. Like maybe CJ Cox comes back as a guy who can really go get you one. But I wouldn't bet on that. This is the beauty of the transfer portal. You can go get guys that are proven. And so hopefully they can find that big win. Because if they can find that, then I'll be sold on them potentially being able to win the whole thing. If not, then, they'll still have a chance to win the whole thing because they're still going to be talented, but they'll just have a pretty glaring weakness. Because right now, they don't have any true wings on their roster, and it's tough to win when you don't have a true wing at any level of basketball. But they're ranked second. Indiana, however, not popping up on any of these way too early top 25 rankings, and that is a good thing. That is a great thing. For Indiana, they need as little publicity as possible. They need a year where no one cares about them outside of Indiana fans. They need a year where they are projected to be a top 16 team in the country. Because when that happens, then the immediate expectation is, like Talent-wise, we're like a top 16 team. That's great. So we should make the Sweet 16 this year. Like, I think that is a natural conclusion that people jump to. And Indiana doesn't need that this year. Like, they need to be not ranked in the preseason at all. Like, I think that would be a great thing for them. More specifically, I feel like that would be a great thing for Coach DeVries. I feel like as a head coach, especially in your first season, you want as few or as low of expectations as possible. The issue is in Indiana, like there are always going to be expectations. But when you're ranked high in the preseason, I think Indiana was like somewhere around 16th last year, then that just raises what everyone expects from you. And that's problematic, especially when you're a first-year head coach at a university where literally every single player left and every player who's coming in to play for you has probably never played together before. I think a year for Indiana basketball where nothing is expected, more specifically the first year of Coach DeVries' tenure at Indiana, like that would be a good thing. But that being said, like there's going to be expectations because this is Indiana and there's a ton of history and there's national championship banners that you see in whenever you walk into Assembly Hall. So like there's going to be expectations. I just hope they're as low as possible because I like Coach DeVries. I think he's going to do a good job. I think this is a good hire for Indiana. I don't know if it's a grand slam home run hire, but I think it's a good one. I think he's going to be able to come in and win. Will he be able to win national championships? I don't know about that. Haven't seen him do it, so I'm not going to commit one way or the other. But I do think this was a good hire. I think year one's going to be a good, successful season unless Indiana fans start being like, we should make the Elite Eight this year. No, you probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't even make the Sweet 16. Like what Dusty May was able to do in year one at Michigan is not normal. Usually when new head coaches show up, it doesn't go great the first year. Like that's just the reality of how it works because you're trying to build a culture and you got all these new players now with the way that the transfer portal works and it just makes things a little bit tougher. So Indiana not being on any of these way too early lists is great. And hopefully it stays that way. When we come back here in about 4 minutes, the Colts, the draft, it's like 2.5 weeks away. Can't wait. My thoughts, or I guess it's 2 weeks away from tomorrow. My thoughts on the Colts and what they're going to do in this year's NFL draft when we come back here in about 4 minutes.
it's in today's sports world, it's here. The Real Jonathan Smith Show on Indy Sports Ticket 1430 AM, 93.9 HD2, and always on the free Indy Sports Ticket app.
What's going on? Welcome back to the Real Jonathan Smith Show here on Indy's Sports Ticket. Hopefully you're having a nice week. Happy Wednesday. The Indianapolis Colts, the draft, it's all coming up. It's about 2 weeks away. Can't wait for it. And there's a lot of attention being placed on what the Colts are going to do with that 14th overall pick. There's a million mock drafts. A lot of, different players being mocked to the Colts. Tyler Warren's still a pretty popular prediction. Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, he's emerged as a potential pick. I saw him going 14th overall to the Colts a couple times. Tyler Booker, offensive guard out of Alabama, he's been floated. Colston Loveland, another tight end who has, he's getting some buzz too to go to the Colts with that 14th pick. Most of these picks address the needs of the Colts, right? Or a lot of these predictions, the Tyler Warrens and Colston Loveland, they both address the tight end need. Tyler Booker addresses that offensive guard need. Will Johnson plays corner. Do the Colts need one? No, but he's a stud, and I'm always in favor of drafting great players. Jahad Campbell, he's not popping up on mock drafts anymore to go play for the Colts, but he should still be in play. I'm assuming that he is because the Colts still need a linebacker. And if the Colts take him, I'll be elated. Dude seems like he's going to be a stud. That being said, there are good linebackers that'll be available in the second and third rounds. Chris Ballard loves value. He does. Okay, he'll pass on a great player to get a good one later in the draft. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts passed on Campbell and took a linebacker in the second round. I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts passed on, Loveland or Tyler Warren with the 14th pick to take Mason Taylor in the second round, because that's how Chris Ballard operates. And that's what I like to focus on today. The second round. Okay, because, yes, whoever the Colts take, 14th overall, is going to grab 1,000,001 headlines. Okay, and we're going to talk about them at nauseum. But who the Colts take in the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh rounds are going to have an impact on the season as well. So what does the Colts draft look like after the first round? In the second round, I'd be very surprised if the Colts don't go defense. I fully expect for the Colts to go offense. I do think that they're going to take a tight end with that 14th pick. We'll see, but that's just kind of where my gut's at right now. I go back and forth on that all the time. And if the Colts do take a tight end in that first round, I think we'll see them go defense in the second round. They could take Demetrius Knight Jr., linebacker out of South Carolina, because they still need a linebacker. They could take Landon Jackson, an edge out of Arkansas, because we know that Chris Ballard loves his edge rushers. They could take a safety if they want to be done with Nick Cross. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame could still be on the board. He'd make sense there. The most likely position, though, I do think is linebacker. I think they go tight end in the first round, linebacker in the second. Maybe they flip that. Like that is possible. But I would also pay attention to the Colts potentially taking a defensive tackle in the second round, because there's a lot of good second-round defensive tackles in this draft class. DeForest Buckner, he's getting older. Grover Stewart, he's getting older. They're both over the age of 30 years old, which is old in the NFL. And the Colts need depth and youth at that spot because, Taven Bryan is just not cutting it. He's not. Like, if he's your third defensive tackle who's rotating in there, like that's not good. So I'd also be on the lookout for the Colts to take players like TJ Sanders, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, maybe Shamar Turner, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. I think both players would make a ton of sense with that pick. Third round, defensive tackle or linebacker, still going to be in play depending on what the Colts do in the first and second round. Defensive tackle Jordan Phillips seems to make a lot of sense. He's playing out of Maryland. Chris Paul Jr., linebacker out of Ole Miss, another linebacker who, if the Colts decide to wait till the third round, they could take there. But the third round, I do think, is when we start seeing other positions really kind of start popping up that aren't as big of needs for the Colts. So running back, and offensive line, I think, start to become real possibilities for the Colts to take at this point. And Chris Ballard made it pretty clear that he loves the middle round offensive linemen, right? So 3, 4, 5, and 6, those rounds, Chris Ballard likes the lineman class in that section of it. And the Colts do need offensive line depth and youth, and Chris Ballard is going to acquire it in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. It's part of why I don't think that they'll draft, Tyler Booker, the offensive guard out of Alabama, in the 1st round. They're going to wait to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounds. And they also need one more running back. I think they need like a little scat back who can come in on 3rd downs and catch the ball out of the backfield. Someone like a Dylan Sampson out of Tennessee. Dude can fly. Maybe Travion Henderson lasts until pick 80. We'll see. He'd be a good option as well. But there are a lot of offensive linemen here that I do think Chris Ballard would jump at. Tate Ratledge, a center out of Georgia. He'd be a solid option. A guy's name who I'm about to butcher, Jonah Saviania. He can play guard or tackle. He's coming out of Arizona. He'd be a good option as well. Maybe the Colts don't take a tight end in the 1st or 2nd round. I think Harold Fannin Jr., he's probably going to be on the board here. The issue is seems like he's going to be a little small to play tight end, but it's Chris Ballard. Who knows what this guy is going to do? So that's what I think the 3rd round looks like. I think this is where we really see Chris Ballard start to lean into and potentially start taking some different offensive linemen. The 4th round, if I had to bet money on the Colts taking at any position in a specific round, I would bet money on the Colts taking an offensive lineman in the 4th round. Okay, Jared Wilson, a center out of Georgia, would make sense. Emory Jones Jr., offensive tackle out of LSU, another solid option. The Colts could take a cornerback here as well because, depth and special teams, like those two things do matter. Noel Williams, cornerback out of Cal, makes sense, especially since Juju Brents can't stay on the field. And I don't know how much they love Jalen Jones. If you run anything other than an in-breaking route against that guy, you're probably going to get open. So I feel pretty good about the Colts going offensive line in the 4th round. But if they deviated, I think it would be to create depth in that secondary because they still do need depth. 5th round, this is where the Colts, I think, deviate from what people expect. They did let go of Sam Ehlinger. They need a quarterback, like a 3rd-string guy who could do the practice team stuff. I think in the 5th round, we see them go quarterback. Kyle McCord out of Syracuse makes a lot of sense. Started his career at Ohio State, transferred away, goes 9-3 at Syracuse, puts up a whole bunch of numbers. He should still be on the board here in the 5th round. Riley Leonard could also still be available here. If the Colts took Riley Leonard, I'd be really upset just because that guy's future as an NFL starter just doesn't, it's not there at all. It's just not. He wasn't highly touted. He's a lesser athletic. He's a less athletic version of Anthony Richardson. He's not super accurate. He can run, but not at the same level that Anthony Richardson does. So hopefully not him. I'd rather McCord because he can really throw the football. The dude's very talented. He was a highly touted guy coming out of high school. He just got thrown onto this Ohio State team, and he was a freshman, and things just seemed a little too big for him, if that makes sense. So Kyle McCord, I would prefer him over Riley Leonard if the Colts did take a quarterback in the 5th round. I do think we'll see them take one on day 3. Maybe it's not one of those two guys. Maybe they wait until the 6th or 7th round to take a quarterback, but I do think we'll see the Colts do that at some point. Then we get to the 6th and 7th rounds. For 6th and 7th round players, your hope is that they just make the roster. Seriously, that's the reality of it. Hopefully, this guy can play special teams, and if someone gets hurt, he can slide in and hold his own for a couple of weeks while fill-in-the-blank player is recovering from bruised ribs. That is the hope when you draft a player in the 6th or 7th round. I think the Colts will just take the best players available at that point. Because once again, when you get that late in the draft, the hope is the guy can be a special teamer or a depth piece. So hopefully Chris Ballard can hit on a couple of these later draft picks. Like, they're going to really need that to happen. Like, could you imagine if fifth-round pick EJ Speed hadn't been good, what this Colts defense would have looked like last year? Could you imagine if seventh-round pick Zaire Franklin hadn't turned into an NFL starter, what this Colts defense would have looked like last year? Hopefully Chris Ballard can find some of that day 3 magic again, because the Colts just need more good players desperately. Okay, there's a lot of solid, not a ton of good. Hopefully, a lot of solid, not a ton of great. Hopefully Chris Ballard gets lucky, takes guys later in the draft that end up being studs, and hopefully Tyler Warren is there at pick 14, because the Colts need an injection of great to slide in around all their, good players. That's going to do it here on the Real Jonathan Smith Show. Hopefully you had a nice time tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I'll be back on the air tomorrow from 10 to noon. Make sure you head over to YouTube, subscribe to the Indy Sports Tickets YouTube page, where you can watch the show live every day from 10 to noon. You can check out my other YouTube page as well, Indy Sports Ticket, if you would like to subscribe to that as well. You can go find that. It's called My Take Is. Make sure you download that Indy Sports Ticket app so you can listen to the Dan Dockett Show coming up next from noon to 3. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.